Shut up and take my money is the theme of this video today. Today I'm presenting to you the best phone you can get for $150 right now. Link is in the description, go buy it and come back. I'll wait. For those who would rather me tell you why, let's get into it. Welcome back to D's Show and Tell. If you're new here, I cover all things tech, phones, computers, audio and more. So please subscribe and hit the bell icon if that's your filthy fetish too. Alright, so this special phone is the LG V50 ThinQ 5G. That's a mouthful. The LG flagship phone released back in 2019, and okay, it's not exactly $150, it's $153.43 at the time of filming this video, but that wouldn't make for a great title, would it? So I've been using this phone for the past week. I've ordered it from AliExpress, the exact same link I have below for a refurb. It's literally come in like new condition. The only giveaway was a USB-C port which looked like it had a bit of use, otherwise it's schmick. And I know what you're thinking right now. Didn't LG stop selling phones? Yes, you're right, they've pulled out of the smartphone market as of mid last year, but they have continued to provide software updates for these phones despite that. More on that and security later on in the video. Otherwise, it is disappointing they've pulled out, as I think they were one of the only few smartphone makers that were always willing to try something new. I've actually got the LG wing on the way to me, so look out for that video when it drops. But I think the real winner in all of this is the customer. You can get a really good deal on LG phones right now. But enough on that, let's talk about the V50. So firstly on the build, I'll start at the back. It's Gorilla Glass 6 and I've got the phone in black. And I believe it might have come in other colors like red, white, blue and grey, but they will be pretty hard to find. You've got a triple camera setup, a wide, telephoto and ultra wide lens. You notice something? A camera bump. Very nice. A fingerprint sensor on the back. Sweet. LG and the model branding of course. You've also got those three little metal connectors at the bottom, and that is to connect the dual screen accessory if you can find one of those to buy. Though honestly, it probably wouldn't be worth it for a phone at this price. On the right side, you've got a lock button and the SIM card tray. The model I have here is a V500N Korean single SIM model, so despite the tray having a slot for a second SIM, it doesn't actually work. But on the plus side, we do get a micro SD card slot. Over on the left side, you've got the volume rockers and a dedicated Google Assistant button, which I adore. You can't remap the button without an app workaround though. Nothing at the top. On the bottom, you have a 3.5mm headphone jack with that much loved inbuilt quad DAC, a USB-C port, and a bottom firing speaker which does work in stereo with the earpiece. Lastly on the front, that's a 6.4-inch 60Hz HDR10 P OLED screen with Gorilla Glass 5. I'll also put up the phone dimensions on screen. You've also got a notch at the top which I would describe as being on the smaller side with a dual camera setup. There is noticeable black borders around the screen. For me it wasn't a big deal. If anything, it actually helped with the fact that the screen has some curvature on the edges which most people don't like. So there were no accidental touches when using the phone because of the black borders. Overall, its presentation is on par with smartphones of that year. Similar build to the Samsung Galaxy S10, which I featured in a recent video which you can watch up here. By today's standards, I still think that it looks incredibly modern. Now onto its specs. It's wielding a Snapdragon 855, the 7nm flagship chip of 2019 with the Adreno 640. The V50 only came in 6GB of RAM and 128GB storage, what I think is still adequate in 2022. Some people do prefer more storage, so the micro SD card slot will work well for them. The phone is IP68 waterproof and comes with all the connectivity you'll need. AC Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, NFC. The USB-C port also supports display out, so we'll talk about their desktop mode when I go through the software. It's got a 4000 mAh battery which supports 18W fast charge and 10W wireless charging. Now onto that triple camera setup. They still hold up pretty well even till now. The 3-camera setup performs well, colors are accurate and good dynamic range. I've taken some shots on a cloudy day and I also want to say I was quite impressed with the ultra wide camera. Manufacturers do tend to cheap out on it, but when pitting the ultra wide against the wide at comparable distance with my textured brick wall, they were tough to tell apart from a detailed perspective, other than the difference in depth of field. The telephoto camera also does a pretty solid job. On my jug of water, you get pretty good detail on the plastics and also on the weave of my jumper. There's also a night mode, and the V50 does a decent job with minimal noise, even when using the ultra wide lens. Video is strong here too. The stabilization on the video is really good and it shoots up to 4K 60 frames per second. I did test with the steady hands option turned on as well, but that performed relatively poorly with, in my opinion, minimal improvements in stabilization, but with great loss of detail. What's great about the camera when you're recording is the ability to switch between the 3 cameras while shooting at 30 frames per second. All in all, I'm pleased with the cameras and I think most people would be satisfied too. Onto performance, the Snapdragon 855 is still plenty quick, despite being 3 years old now. Here are the Geekbench and Antutu scores I got with the LG V50 and what you'd expect from this chip. All the games I ran also performed well, a very solid experience even when playing more demanding titles like Genshin Impact. Here is Call of Duty. And finally, Asphalt 9. Day-to-day use, it's snappy when using applications. The 60Hz refresh rate does noticeably feel less smooth compared to a 120Hz screen, but actually didn't feel too different to the 90Hz on my Pixel 5, so I guess that's a good thing. The 6GB RAM is still adequate for 2022. If it was only 4GB, that would be really pushing it, but I think as an overall package, this is a really solid performer and should have some longevity in it. One of the big standouts for LG phones is that inbuilt quad DAC, which actually works like a DAC amp combo. I'm not aware of any other phones that have done something similar. I tested my Sennheiser 6XXs, which are a 300 ohm impedance headphone, and they sounded great. The DAC also automatically adjusts the gain for low or high impedance, which is great for those who cycle through different headphones. The DAC is meant to support up to 600 ohm headphones. Unfortunately, I don't have a pair that high to test, so I can't comment on that. Let's talk about the software now. So I haven't used an LG phone since the pre-smartphone days, and I really regret that. So the V50 launched with Android 9, and LG have been kind enough to provide updates up to Android 11. You are very unlikely to get 12 though. I also feel that LG have packed this thing with tons of features, a lot more than you'll find on other phones. You've got dual apps built in if you have multiple logins for very popular apps. You have a bit more customization on your navigation bar, allowing you to add an additional button. I like the quick tools and music player on the always on display, which allowed for some extra convenience. And there was also some basic automations that can be set depending on where you are or when certain devices are connected to your phone. There are more stuff baked in, but I think LG really does spoil you. There was some preloaded Korean bloat on my phone, but I'm not too fussed about that. The LG V50 also has a desktop mode when plugged in, like Samsung DeX. Unfortunately, it works nowhere as well. There is no recently opened apps button, ease of use features like double clicking on the window bar doesn't maximize. Look, it's better than nothing, but it just isn't great, so I wouldn't recommend it. Now, we better address the elephant in the room, security. The last security update on the LG V50 was at the end of October 2021. Now that's fairly recent if you ask me, but given that we probably won't see many, if any at all, the TLDR is this. If you're concerned, you can flash a custom ROM like Lineage OS at your own risk of course, links below. Personally, I'm not too fast and believe that provided you don't connect to random or any public Wi-Fi, don't sideload random APKs, always use two-factor authentication where you can, stick to the well-known porn sites, none of that freaky stuff you're into. And if you want to be extra careful, don't do any banking on your phone at all, then you'll probably be right. My mate was using a Galaxy Note 4 on Android 6 up until 2019 with no problems, and there is still a large percentage of Android users still on Android 9 or older, so that's just my 2 cents, but do what you feel comfortable with. Lastly, onto battery. The LG V50 has a 4000 mAh battery, which will get you about a day of use, but we'll cut it close if you are a real hardcore user. I had around 15 to 25% left in the tank most days. It has 18-watt fast charge, which isn't very fast by today's standards, and will go from flat to 100% in just under 2 hours. It's got 10-watt wireless charging, which is better than none. I usually put my phone down onto the wireless charger overnight, and given the battery was sufficient to get me through a day, I guess the slow charge speeds aren't necessarily a deal breaker. LG have really packed a lot into this phone, and it's such a shame that they're no longer in the smartphone business. I do regret not giving them a chance with their phones back then, because honestly, the V50 is still a wicked phone till this day. What are you waiting for? Get one already. $150 is an absolute bargain. That's all for this one. New videos every week. Thank you again for watching, and until I see you again, bye bye.